No country loves convenience more than America. That is why we lead the world in everything from fast food to the number of convenience stores. The more modern we become, the more we want everything faster, easier, and more convenient. So why by 2026 are the very stores created to meet that need slowly disappearing?
Americans are buying less groceries. Grocery product purchases were flat in 2025, then declined about 2% year over year in most months since February of 2026.
This is f***ing insane. $7 for 10 slices of cheese? I need to get the f*** out of the US.
Locations are closing one after another. Familiar names are being wiped off the map. Meanwhile, customers are complaining more and more about prices service and even the technology being promoted. What happened in a country with the strongest economy in the world? Today, let us uncover the truth behind the mass disappearance of convenience stores across America. Watch today's video all the way to the end, because this disappearance is not just telling the story of one retail industry. It may be warning us about the bigger picture of America in the second half of 2026 in a way that is much sadder than we want to believe. Americans have completely changed the way they buy food. In one of the richest economies in the world, one family has given up steak, cut back on beef, stopped eating out as much, and switched to canned fish and noodles, but their food bill still reaches around $1,200 a month. That is America in 2026.
$1,200. $1,200 is what we have spent on groceries this month. We're not eating steaks, we're barely eating meat. It's like ground turkey instead of ground beef. We're doing canned tuna for tuna casserole. My kids have ramen and dumplings when I don't feel like making dinner. We're not going out to eat. We're not going crazy. We have some snacks every once in a while, but it's like, I don't know, a bag of Doritos every other week is what we're buying. And mostly it's like air-popped popcorn. How are we spending $1,200 in a month on groceries? This is unsustainable. How do we live like this?
What worries me is not just the $1,200 figure. Every family's costs can be very different depending on where they live, how many people are in the household, and how they shop. What matters is that this family has done almost everything people usually recommend when trying to save money. They cut back. They changed what they ate. They gave up expensive items. But after all that, they are still paying more to eat worse. Maybe your household bill has not reached that level, but there is a good chance you have done a smaller version of the same thing. You pick up a package of meat, then switch to a cheaper one. You look at a bag of snacks, you hesitate for a few seconds, then put it back. You bring water or coffee from home instead of buying it on the way. You go to one more store just to save a few dollars. Each decision seems small, but when they keep happening over and over, they start changing the entire way people buy food.
$90.
And this is the reason why sometimes I go out to eat, because I don't have to cook it. I don't have to pay for the gas and electricity and my time and all that. And
I do not think a few videos online can represent all of America. But when the same behavior shows up across many families, many store chains, and many income levels, we cannot keep treating it as nothing more than personal complaining. One item gets put back on the shelf. One kind of meat gets replaced. One store gets skipped in search of somewhere cheaper. These individual choices are slowly coming together into a larger pattern. The problem is not one orange or 1 pound of meat. The problem is that almost every aisle takes another small piece of the budget. One item going up 50 cents is not enough to throw a family into crisis. But when dozens of items go up at the same time, wages do not create any extra cushion, and the best prices are locked behind coupons, apps, and membership programs shoppers are forced to change. First, they switch what they buy. Beef becomes turkey. Familiar brands become cheaper store brands. When that is still not enough, they start cutting things out. Snacks, soda, expensive meat, and anything they can live without. Finally, they change where they shop. They hunt for discounts, visit multiple stores, switch to Aldi, buy in bulk, or look for local food sources. Underneath those stories, people are starting to teach one another how to stretch every dollar going back to bins. Rice and potatoes, cooking once and eating for several days, buying meat when it is on sale, growing vegetables, canning food, and freezing it. They are not just sharing their anger anymore. They are trading survival strategies. And pay attention to the first things getting cut. A bottle of water bought on the road, a bag of snacks at the counter, a cup of coffee grabbed because you were in a hurry. A supermarket still has an entire cart of items to keep a customer. But one type of store depends almost entirely on those small, quick, barely thought out decisions. When Americans start thinking longer before buying even one bottle of water, that is when the real trouble begins for those stores. Small purchases are destroying convenience stores.
So guess what? This is going up in August. Everything's going up in August that is in packaging that they don't like. Butter and cheese and all these.
A convenience store crisis does not begin when the parking lot is empty. It begins when customers still stop by, but no longer leave enough money behind. A convenience store cannot survive just because people stop their cars there. It needs that person to also grab a cup of coffee, a bottle of water, a bag of snacks, or some hot food. Then it needs that same person to come back the next day and repeat the exact same habit. A good location only gets the car to pull in. The extra purchases are what make each visit valuable. And repetition turns those small transactions into a steady enough flow of money for the store to pay workers, restock shelves, repair equipment, renovate the property, and think about opening more locations. Honestly, convenience stores do not grow because of one expensive item. They grow because of the thousands of times we tell ourselves, what is a few more dollars? And that exact thought is disappearing from consumers' minds. Convenience stores do not really sell only water, coffee, or snacks. What they sell is the moment you were not prepared. You forgot to bring water. You did not have time for breakfast. You need a cup of coffee right now. You do not want to drive another 10 minutes to find somewhere cheaper. But when prices force people to prepare for almost everything, those moments start happening less often. First, people buy cases of water at the supermarket. Then they make coffee before leaving home. After that, they pack lunch, snacks, and a bottle of water for the whole day. The stories from the previous section show that many people are cutting back on snacks, sodas, and optional spending while shopping from a list and looking for lower prices. What catches my attention is that nobody has to be angry at the store. They do not have to announce a boycott or argue with an employee. They just have to prepare a little better before leaving home. And just like that, a transaction disappears before the store even realizes what it lost. You may be doing the same thing without noticing. You buy 6 bottles of water instead of buying them one at a time. You skip the candy bar because it is no longer worth a few minutes of enjoyment. You bring coffee from home and tell yourself you will eat when you get there. I think the most troubling scene is not a store that has already locked its doors. It is a store that is still open at night, with the signs still glowing and cars still coming and going, but it is quieter inside than it used to be. The coffee machine takes longer to run empty. The snack shelves stay full longer, and nobody knows exactly which day that silence started turning into losses. And yet there is a contradiction. At the same time, Americans are cutting back on coffee, snacks, and extra purchases. Some chains are still opening new stores. That makes me think the problem is not that Americans no longer need convenience. Maybe they are just no longer willing to pay extra for a store that does not give them enough reason to walk inside. 7-Eleven is closing stores, while Casey's keeps expanding what is going on. In the same America, 7-Eleven is projecting 645 closures across North America. Casey's wants to add at least 400 stores over 3 years, and the company that owns Circle K spent around $1.6 billion to buy 270 get-go locations. When I put those 3 decisions side by side, I no longer believe the story is simply that Americans do not need convenience stores anymore. If demand were truly disappearing, no company would spend billions of dollars buying more of these stores. What is happening looks more like a sorting process. The national picture does not show the entire industry collapsing either. By the end of 2025, the United States had 151,975 convenience stores, down only 280 locations, or 0.2% from the year before. Sales of goods and services inside the stores still reached $341.2 billion, up 1.7%. This was the 23rd year in a row that sales inside the stores increased. Those numbers do not show me an industry being erased from the map. They show me that the map itself is being redrawn. Some signs are coming down, but that does not necessarily mean the locations, customers, and money are disappearing with them. 7-Eleven is the clearest example. Honestly, when I first saw the number 645 closures, my first reaction was also to picture hundreds of darkened stores. But when you read the company's documents carefully, the picture is much more complicated. That number also includes locations being converted to a wholesale fuel model. At the same time, 7-Eleven still expects to open 205 new stores. 7-Eleven is not simply shrinking its network. It is redrawing its map. One store may truly close. Another location may only change the way it operates. Meanwhile, new stores are still being placed where the company believes its money can earn a better return. But Casey's sees the same market differently. During the fiscal year that ended in April 2025, Casey's built or acquired 270 stores, the biggest increase in company history. That total included 198 CEFCO stores owned by Fikes Wholesale. By June 2026, Casey's announced plans to add at least 400 locations over the next 3 years. Casey's made me realize that an old store does not have a fixed value. Its value depends on what the new owner can turn it into. According to Casey's documents, around 85% of the CEFCO stores could be converted to its model. The company also sees an opportunity to bring its pizza program distribution system and purchasing scale into locations that already have customers. Where the previous owner may see limitations, Casey's sees a model that has not been put in the right place yet. Circle K is expanding too, but it is doing it by buying an entire existing network. Parent company Alimentation Couch. Tard completed its purchase of 270 Get-Go stores in June 2025 for $1.6 billion. During one quarter of fiscal year 2026, the company also completed construction on 37 stores and had another 58 locations under construction. Circle K did not just buy 270 buildings. It bought the intersections where people were already used to stopping, the gas pumps that already had cars pulling in, and the shopping habits that already existed. The Get-Go logo may disappear, but the way customers behave at those locations is what the buyer really wants to keep. So closing stores and expanding are not two opposite stories. They are two sides of the same transfer. Locations that create too little value are closed, sold, or converted. Investment money and market share then flow toward the chains that believe they can do better at those very same locations. But even that is not enough. To fight this broad downturn, these chains are being forced to make more changes, take stronger action, and move on a wider scale to keep customers. The convenience stores that survive no longer look like convenience stores. Can you believe it? Every convenience store is changing, and those changes are making them look less and less like convenience stores. To keep making money, the strongest chains are turning them into small restaurants, private food brands, and membership systems designed to keep customers coming back. They no longer want to sit around waiting for you to forget your water skip breakfast or need a bag of snacks on the road. The first change is selling a meal instead of just selling snacks. Pizza, fried chicken, burgers, sandwiches, breakfast food, and coffee made on site are no longer just a few extra products sitting next to the checkout counter. They are becoming an important part of how these stores make a profit. In 2025, food service made up 28.5% of sales inside American convenience stores, but it generated 38.9% of gross profit inside the stores. Prepared foods such as pizza, chicken, burgers, and sandwiches alone made up 73.9% of food service sales. Those numbers are pretty clear. The stores sell a lot of different things, but food is where every dollar carries more weight. Casey's is the clearest example. In fiscal year 2026, same-store sales for prepared food and fountain drinks rose 5.2%. The margin for that group reached 58.6%, while groceries and general merchandise came in at 35.8%. Whole pizzas and side dishes were major drivers of the company's results. Casey's maybe stopped seeing it as a gas station that happens to sell pizza. I see a food business that used the pumps out front to bring customers closer to the kitchen. The difference comes down to what the customer intends to buy. You might grab a bag of snacks because it happens to be right in front of you, but you will actually drive to a store if you want that specific pizza. At that point, the store is no longer just a place to stop. It has become a destination. The second change is selling something customers cannot find everywhere else. Selling a meal still is not enough if the store has nothing of its own. And when the product is exactly the same as what Walmart sells, customers can still go back and compare prices. That is why chains are expanding their private labels, their own recipes and products that exist only within their own systems. 7-Eleven wants to double private label sales to around $2.6 billion by 2030. The company also says margins on those products are about 18 percentage points higher than comparable national brands. A famous can of soda always reminds you that it is sold at other stores too, but something you can only get at 7-Eleven gives you a reason to go back to 7-Eleven. I do not think this is just about changing the label on the package. When a chain owns the product, it also takes back control over a pricing promotion, and the store used to sell it. It no longer has to depend completely on brands that competitors can put on their shelves too. The final change is even more ambitious. The chains do not just want to sell you a product, they want to own part of your daily routine. Circle K is trying to turn every visit into an invitation for the next one. The Inner Circle program already has more than 6 million fully enrolled members across more than 4,000 stores in the United States. Members get fuel and food discounts along with offers tailored to each customer. The company has also found that members come back more often. From the store's point of view, that is a great deal. They are no longer looking at an anonymous customer. They know when that person usually stops by what they buy and what kind of offer gets a response. The chains do not just want to sell you a cup of coffee today. They want to become the place you automatically think of when you need coffee tomorrow morning. This should have been a better version of the convenience store. So why are these chains making more customers complain, push back, and want to stay away as they keep modernizing technology, is turning customers into unpaid employees?
Y'all need to take a look at this right here. They're going to be transitioning, which they have already started in Kroger's, ShopRite, some Aldis throughout the country. They're going to be changing and transitioning completely into AI grocery carts, meaning they're going to be scanning your face, watching everything you do.
Have you noticed technology was brought into stores with the promise of making everything simpler? But the smarter it gets, the more shopping starts to feel like a series of procedures customers have to teach themselves to get through. You download the app, create an account, enter your phone number, find the coupon, figure out the difference between the regular price, the member price, and the price that only shows up on the screen. Then you still have to scan the right item, put it in the right place, and wait for the system to confirm that you did not do anything wrong. The first thing that wears shoppers out is that a very simple transaction is turning into a test. But the complexity is only what you see on the surface. What makes many people even more uneasy is the feeling that the system is watching them too. Cameras, sensors, and software can check whether customers scan the right item. Apps can record when they visit what they usually buy, and which offers bring them back. Reactions to smart shopping carts show that many people do not see this technology as a helper. They see it as a new layer of surveillance placed between them and the product. What bothers me most is not the camera itself. It is the imbalance. The store knows more and more about the customer, while the customer knows less and less about the system judging them. A coupon used to be just a coupon. Now, to save a few dollars, you may have to hand over your email address, phone number, and even your shopping history. So are you getting a discount, or are you selling your privacy way too cheaply? But being asked to learn and accept a complicated new system is only half the problem. Once customers enter that system, they also have to operate it themselves. They scan their own items, weigh their own food, bag everything themselves. When the machine reports an error, they read the instructions on their own, then stand there waiting for an employee who has to run between several checkout stations. What turns frustration into anger is that the business saves on labor costs while customers have no idea what they are getting in return. Are prices lower? Does it take less time? When the machine has a problem, is there still someone there to help? If the answer to all of those questions is no, this is no longer a convenience. The store is simply handing its own work to the person who is paying it. If customers have to learn an entire system, hand over personal data, and do the employee's job just to complete a purchase, what exactly is convenient about it? And if even the biggest chains are losing customer trust while modernizing, what will be left for stores that are too small, too old, and do not have enough money to change? The old convenience store model is disappearing. A store usually dies at twice. The first time is when the owner no longer believes it is worth investing in. The second time is the day the sign finally goes dark. The model under threat first is the store that has nothing left to sell except being on the way. It sits on the right corner, it is next to the gas pumps, it is the closest place when you need a bottle of water or a bag of snacks or something really quick. But inside, almost every product can be bought somewhere else for less. The next problem is inside the building itself. Not every store can become a Casey's just by adding a pizza oven. Some locations are too small for a kitchen, do not have enough cold storage, have parking lots that are too cramped, and use equipment that is too old. Renovation costs can sometimes get so high that building a new store makes more sense. In other words, some buildings were built for a business model that belongs to the past. But the group in the most danger is made up of stores that still earn enough money to open every day, but not enough money to change. They are not big enough to modernize, and not cheap enough to compete, and not special enough for customers to remember. On one side, Walmart, Costco, and discount chains win on price. On the other side, newer convenience stores win with food, exclusive products, and a better experience. The store stuck in the middle has only one advantage left, and that is being close by. And being close is worth less and less. I do not think every small store will disappear. An independent store can still do well if it understands the neighborhood has regular customers, sells what local people truly need, or creates a level of trust that a large chain cannot. So what is disappearing is not every small convenience store. What is disappearing is the model that sells the same product for a higher price in a building that no longer fits the business, then hopes customers will come in simply because they do not have a better choice. And when that store disappears, the gap it leaves behind can be much bigger than the revenue it once generated. One store closing can make an entire neighborhood harder to live in. The most unfair thing about this wave of closures is that convenience does not disappear. It is simply taken away from the people who need it most. Think about someone getting off work close to midnight, before they could walk to the store at the end of the block to buy pain medicine, a carton of milk, or something to eat before going home. When that store closes, the large supermarket is still there, but it is several miles away, already closed or only reachable by car. What I regret most is when that store is the last option in a neighborhood then disappears without anything being built to replace it. We often look at a store through sales costs and the number of transactions, but for the community, its value sometimes lies in things that never show up on a spreadsheet. It is open when other places have closed. It is within walking distance. It lets someone buy a few essentials without needing a card, downloading an app, or spending half a day on the trip. It does not just sell products. It shortens the distance between people and their basic needs. That is a form of everyday infrastructure, even if businesses do not call it that. I want convenience stores to change, but in a way that stays true to the meaning of convenience. Prices should be easy to understand. Transactions should be quick. Customers should be able to find someone to help when a machine has a problem. And nobody should be forced to hand over more personal data just to buy something at a reasonable price. When businesses save money by making people with fewer choices travel farther, pay more, and become more dependent, that is not progress. That is just moving costs from the company's balance sheet into the lives of the most vulnerable people. You could say America is one of the countries that loves convenience the most, but surprisingly, by 2026, the model once seen as essential is getting weaker. Many stores are closing, many names are being erased from the map. The locations that remain are also being forced to change almost everything about how they make money. And I do not think this is just a small shift in retail. It shows that Americans are shopping more carefully, preparing more, and are no longer willing to pay extra so easily just for convenience. It also reflects price pressure, consumer exhaustion, and an America that is slowly looking darker behind the growth figures. How do you see this story? Share your thoughts below. And subscribe to the channel if you're not afraid to look straight at the darker forces quietly changing this country.